Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in again to another part in this home buying series, and I hope you find some value in this video today. And we'll be going over appraisals. So what is an appraisal? What's the purpose of the appraisal? Things like that. So on its face, an appraisal is basically coming up with a value for the property that you're purchasing. And assuming you're purchasing the property with a loan, this is what the bank does to make sure it's worth what you're paying and that it will be a valuable investment for them. So the bank itself really doesn't know much, if anything, about the housing market, about particular houses, things like that. Even the local banks really don't know. That's not their job, essentially. Their job is the money. So they want to make sure they're getting their return on their investment by loaning you the money in the form of a mortgage. So they want another professional opinion on if this is a wise investment for them, if the home value is basically what you're wanting to pay for it. So they will, in one way or another, get an appraiser to go out to the home and appraise the property. And so as far as the timeline's concerned, this should be done after we've negotiated the inspections. We don't want it done before, because let's say you do inspections and they're terrible and you no longer want to purchase the home. Well, you don't want to have another $400 to $500 wrapped up in the transaction because the appraiser has already been out to the house and thereby you owe them for their work. So we want to wait after inspections to do this. So the appraiser will go out to the house and they'll coordinate that with the owner, or with the other agent, or with me, whomever. But they're going to go out there and they're going to take notes about property condition. They're going to measure the home. They're going to take pictures of the home. The bank's going to want to see all of this. And then once they kind of do their site work at the property, they're going to take all that information back and they're going to try to find comparable sales. What are comparable sales? Exactly what they sound like. So what is something that is similar that has recently sold to that home? Now, no two homes are alike, and so it's not what I would consider a perfect science, but basically appraisals in the same neighborhood are somewhat easier than like a rural property. So if you have, in the last 12 months or so, 10 homes that have sold in this particular neighborhood, the appraiser is going to have a pretty good idea via that data what the home value is. So when looking for those comparable sales, he or she is looking for, like I said, probably the last 12 months. They could shorten that if there's a lot of home sales, but probably the last 12 months, as similar a square footage as they can find. Same with bedrooms and bathrooms and garage spaces, things like that. But since no two are alike, they're going to have to make adjustments to those comparable sales to say, okay, so here's my subject property, the property that you're purchasing. It has another bedroom in comparison to this other sale, but it doesn't have a garage, and so they make basically calculations on down and come up with a comparable sale value. And they do that with all of them. They could include, the minimum's 3, so 3 comparable sales, and then if they need like extra proof that it is what they say it is, they could have extra, I guess as many as they want really, but I typically see between 3 and 6 comparable sales. So they kind of take all that data in consideration. So let's say they've used 3, and those prices can range up and down or around the sales price, the purchase price that you're purchasing for, and then they come up with a value. It is their opinion of value on that particular day that they've done the bulk of the appraisal work. So as long as it meets the value that you're purchasing the property for, everybody's reasonably happy, and you can actually schedule closing pretty quickly after a few more review things and underwriting, but you are almost to the finish line once that appraisal comes back and everything's fine. The problem comes in if the appraiser's opinion of value is less than what you're purchasing the property for. We've been seeing a fair amount of that recently just because of the current market conditions and the ramp up of values and things like that. I had one the other day. So basically everything kind of stops at that point until we figure it out. I would say most of the time the seller agrees to sell at the lower appraised value. That doesn't happen all the time though. If they are needing or just highly wanting a certain price for that home, they do not have to continue with the transaction if the appraisal comes in low. I've also been a part of them to where the buyer and seller kind of just renegotiate things. So yes, the appraisal came in $5,000 less. The seller could say, you know what, I'm giving you seller's concessions. I'll do the lower price, but I can't basically pay for your closing costs. I've been a part of one of those. Sometimes the buyer and seller says, well, we'll just split the difference. You know, buyer says, I have a little bit of cash, extra cash I can put in the transaction, and then the seller says, well, I can take a little bit less, or it's just somewhere in between, maybe not exactly equal, but somewhere in between. Again, I will say sellers for the most of the time will take that lower appraised value price. So let's just hope for the best. Sometimes we just kind of hold our breath and see what that appraiser thinks, and we'll just kind of cross that bridge if we do have a problem. The other part of that appraisal is looking at property condition, and if you have a conventional loan, it's not usually a sticking point if there are a couple condition issues. But if we look back on one of the videos we did talking about loan types, so if you have an FHA, a USDA, or a VA loan, the appraiser, if he's qualified and they hold a separate kind of designation, they will also make sure it meets those particular loan type conditions as well. So we've talked about these. The short list would be peeling paint, broken windows, just like a really bad roof, really bad flooring, carpet, torn up carpet, missing flooring, boarded up windows, I guess, things like that, safety issues. And so along with the appraised value that he's coming up with, there will also be a little section there that says, okay, basically, does this conform to those type of standards, yes or no? If not, if he says, you know what, this little thing over here does not meet those standards, he will mark it as subject to. So subject to repair or replacement of whatever that issue is. And so again, typically the seller will take care of that issue a lot of the times. And so, I mean, you as the buyer, you can say, hey, the appraisal came out fine value-wise, we're ready to close as soon as we can. However, they really need a porch railing over on the side porch for us to get this loan. Mr. Seller, if you don't do it, I can't get the loan, we don't buy the house, we're a month into this thing, I don't think anybody wants that. So that's why typically the sellers will do that. Now, if it's a high dollar item, let's say for some reason the appraiser thinks it needs a new roof, you know, that's a tougher conversation. Obviously, it's a lot of more money. So that is just something, again, we have to discuss between the buyer and the seller to decide what to do. Are we parting ways at that point, or can we figure something out to make it all work? So that's the gist of appraisals. And like I said, after that's done, which usually takes about a week after the appraiser's there, a week for his report. After that, it'll go into another review from the lender, which may take another half a week to a week, depending on their load, their workload. And then hopefully after that, everybody's happy. We can finally get to schedule the closing. So that's a subject coming up. So that's about it on appraisals. So I appreciate you again checking in, and until next time, see ya.